Okay, I see you, George. John, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay. Then I would like to call this meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. Please rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd like to remind everyone to please mute their lines until they would like to speak. There will be opportunity for public comment at the beginning and or towards the end of the meeting. There are 20 participants signed on to this meeting. So before I call this meeting to order, George, I would like to publicly, on behalf of the residents of the town of Durham, express our sincere condolences on the passing of your dad, George Eames III, pillar of our community, public servant, civic organizer, someone who loved this town more than anyone I know, and he will be sorely missed.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Any additions, deletions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, is there any public comment? There are now 21 participants. Phil Auger, I see your hand up.
Thank you. A few weeks ago, Monday, May 18th, I made some comments at the beginning of the meeting. I reviewed the executive orders and stated why I believed outdoor meetings were allowable even at that time. Since that time, things have begun to open up. I've been out to dinner 4 times. I think personally that it is time for the town to consider altering its policy regarding boards and commissions and making all meetings of this format. I think this is a great technology to supplement in-person meetings, but I would like to see Durham start to hold in-person meetings again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hey, Roger Passavant.
Go ahead, Raj.
Would like to echo what Mr. Auger said in regards to open air public forum meetings. Agricultural Commission has a meeting next Tuesday, and we are of the opinion it should be held at Allenbrook Park. I know that the Board of Selectmen at this point in time is not supporting that, but since agriculture is the foundation of Durham, I'm of the opinion we're going to hold our meeting at Allenbrook next Tuesday night.
I'll tell you, I'm very supportive of that, Roger.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comment?
Am I alive?
Yes, Rick.
Yeah, I'd like to support Phil's comments also about open meetings. I see the library is opened up to a certain degree, and you know, many people. I don't know how many people. I don't know how many people in town have access to the internet or equipment to access the internet, but I was always of the school that could always go to the library, had adequate hours, adequate number of computers, and personnel there to help them. But when this virus hit and the library shut down, those people, whoever they were, lost that possibility. Now, also, when I was on the town website the other day, I went to look up some personal property on the assessor's site, and it's not there. I know one time a few years ago, I asked the town clerk about the voter list being on the town website. And I think in view of some of the things that had happened, we need to get more information out there. So those of us that do have access to the internet can access that information. Thank you.
Rick, the assessor information is online.
Personal property?
Oh, no, no.
Yeah, and some of the information it's not current.
Yeah.
I know there's been land transfers that are current.
Yes, our contract calls for updates quarterly on there. But we could look to see what the cost is to doing it more often.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. I think it's even past a quarterly thing, but I couldn't swear to that right now.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments?
Roger Kleeman here.
Okay, Raj.
I understand a letter went out to Haddam Quarter Road and to Old Yankee Way and also Royal Oak Park about getting possibility of signing up for water at some point.
Yes,
I would like a copy of that letter, please.
sure.
Thank you very much.
The people who were sent that letter are the people in the neighborhoods that were included in the feasibility study that was completed in 2012. All of the areas that were anticipated to possibly be connected to the water main that is currently being constructed, that was sized to, in fact, accommodate those neighborhoods if we chose to expand the water main into those areas. But yeah, I can get you a copy of that, Roger.
I would appreciate. Have we established a cost per gallon yet?
No, we are still working with RCAP Solutions on the rate design study, but we've put that on hold until we complete an asset management plan that is absolutely part of the calculus for that rate calculation. And it's something that it has to be done to include the new assets once the new water main comes online. So once that's done, the rate design will come after that. It will be complete well in advance of any water being turned on.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Other public comment?
Laura, this is Karen Cheney.
Hi, Karen.
I'm trying to do this one more time. The in-person outside curbside voting is it's something we developed back when we thought we would not have an option to do absentee ballots. And now it is just getting more and more expensive. We're going to be hiring policemen, state troopers, overtime. We're going to have public works probably doing overtime. We're having to do the whole in-person voting aspect has just gotten out of control, in my personal opinion, because we're paying for the absentee ballot and then we're paying for the in-person also. And my concern is, again, I would just love for you to revisit your decision to have this election at all at this time and just wait until the November 2021 when the Board of Ed will be on the ballot in the regular and the new system, new way of doing things. So I'm bringing this up again.
So Karen, we do not have the authority as a Board of Selectmen to cancel or not hold an election and to extend these terms. We did at one point in time have the authority to determine what the transition period would be, or the transition process would be, to move the Board of Ed election to the November ballot. But there is no authority that rests with the Board of Selectmen to cancel this election and extend the terms of office to those who are currently serving at all. It is not within our authority to do that. The executive order says that there shall be an election for those officers that should have been elected at a town meeting.
My understanding is that that is true for DIMIAB, obviously. It is the Board of Ed election, because the Board of Selectmen chose to have the meeting, because the Board of Selectmen chose to have the Board of Ed election at this year's May town meeting, that's what got us in the situation. Had you chosen to say, no, we're just going to continue it, then we would never be in this situation.
We would still have the need for an election for the DIMIA.
DIMIAB, yes, but that could be easily done through the absentee ballots with none of these other issues.
And
I'm
Karen,
not sure that's correct, Karen. Why are you saying only absentee?
I think having something in person for a DIMIAB election, when we don't even know who the candidates are, it's very unlikely that we might even need to have the election. And if we have the election, doing it by absentee would be very simple with just the DIMIAB.
George, you wanted to say something?
well, I was just pointing out, reiterating what you'd said. According to the charter, section 2.1, I mean, any general town election, someone who is elected by general town election, by charter, they have to be elected that way. You're talking a short transition period. And just as a reminder, when the Board of Selectmen discussed how to do the transition period, I think it was in February before the pandemic even hit.
Right.
Hindsight is 2020, but at the time, we thought we were pushing the most democratic process forward. And as they say in business, now we are where we are. I can't go back, we can't go back and restate how to transition terms after we've already taken the approach of how to do it through a election the way that we called it. So the process always was, and this was my—
I think it's cleared out on the table.
Hey, Rick, you're live, buddy. What at the annual town meeting, obviously we do elect DIMIA, we do elect the Board of Ed, or have been historically. We also do the budgets, and we also do capital assets. So we were putting all of that in a pot and saying, how can we do the most democratic process going forward? And quite honestly, the governor did one thing with the budget that I didn't like, and now we're focused on DIMIA and the Board of Ed. But again, all of this was a moving target. When we started this thing, we had the best laid plans, and obviously a global pandemic really put the kibosh into that. But considering we are where we are, and Lou is very much stating that the way that he's reading this, especially for the primary election, is if you're going to do, you can't just do in absentee or absentee ballots. You have to open it up to both. I'm not sure what the turnout's going to be. And I mean, if you need volunteers, you need help doing this, I would be more than happy to lend a hand. I can find some other people to lend a hand. But I really do think from a democratic perspective, this is probably the best way to go. We just have to make sure we're doing it safely. So I don't think we can backpedal at this point, is what I'm saying.
George, we met with Larry Morello today, the state trooper, to try and dot some I's and cross some T's. And he added the requirement that we have a trooper available for traffic control, specifically because if there's a problem, you know, emergency vehicles might need to get through. And it would probably make the traffic go that much smoother. It does add some expense. I'm not sure how much. Karen's comment about it being too expensive is, I guess it's going to be a lot more expensive than before, because we are going to set up the gym in case there's an emergency of a lightning storm and people got afraid and had to move inside. We don't think that's going to happen. John Jenkins is going to help us out with tents and everything we need. We appreciate your offer. I might need some help. A couple of our people changed their mind, but right now I think I have enough people. I'm always just adding to my backup list as needed. And I think we've done a lot of preparation. It's been difficult, but we're getting there. And I think Karen mentioned that there's going to be a lot of absentees for sure. So that reduces the in-person turnout, makes it more manageable. And with the added postcard advertisement, maybe it doubles people's attendance and contribution to the democratic process. Maybe 400 people show up instead of 200, but still a good, very big chunk of that will be by absentee. So the 4-hour window that we're providing is a lot better than the 30-minute window that we allow for voting at the auditorium. And, I have my concerns, things could go wrong. We haven't tried this before, but we're as prepared as we possibly can be with personal protection. We'll do more training of the poll workers. Karen's helping me right along. We're running it together. We disagreed, but we're registrars, so we're working together to get it working right.
Okay, good.
But George, what I would like to say is
I've had my hand up, Laura. Is there any chance?
I'm sorry.
that-
Yeah, I have you waiting and I have someone else
I
waiting.
know, but we keep coming back to the same person. It seems like it
Well,
might be time for other thoughts.
yeah.
Is that okay? Karen, if I may speak, please?
Yes,
This is
yes.
Philip Auger. I find it interesting that an elected official who oversaw a meeting on May 8th, 2017, where, to read from the call of the meeting, to elect 3 members to a 3-year term, said term to expire June 30th, 2020, would now want to be rolling the clock back. George, not back to your February decision. That would be rolling the clock back to May of 2017 to extend terms. I can't think of anything less democratic. I agree with everything else that the selectmen have said. Thank you.
Thomas Peters, you have been waiting to speak.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Thomas Peters. This past Saturday, I organized a walk and vigil in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. Almost 300 people attended the event. I spoke with First Selectman Laura Francis on the phone on Friday, and once again, I want to thank her for providing the resources for me to run the event smoothly. I also saw Ms. Francis co-wrote a letter to our community expressing her unwavering commitment to peace and unity in our towns and schools and a lack of tolerance for racism. I'm speaking here tonight because I'm wondering what are the other selectmen actively embracing diversity and inclusion in our community. Mr. Ames, Mr. Sheshnik. Thank you.
Are you asking why we didn't sign a letter?
I'm just asking what are you doing to help actively embrace diversity and inclusion in our community?
Well, I don't know if you know my background, but I do own a manufacturing company, and majority of my employees are of color, brown and black. And obviously I do strongly support the Black Lives Matter program. I think it is time past due, well overdue in this community. I also am seeing a lot of push about defunding police, and that quite honestly scares the bejesus out of me. And I hope there's a compromise between the two focuses. And during all of this, I mean, I do not in any way, shape, or form want anyone, especially in this community, to throw police departments under the bus in favor of another movement. Peaceful, yes, but I do strongly believe we also, in the middle of all this, need a strong police presence. And I know that the police have been getting a bad rap because of what's going on in some large cities and small towns. I understand this has been going on, but I think we need to address the problem, fix the problem, and not throw out the baby with the bathwater. I really do think there's a compromise to be had. I think the movement is hugely important, and I am strongly in favor of it. As far as the letter is concerned with the Board of Ed, that came from Laura. We just sent that on Friday. We weren't aware, I wasn't aware that that letter was being drafted.
I'll just talk quickly, and this probably isn't even, the place about to talk about my professional career outside of here. But, as being a police officer and a supervisor for, almost 20 years now in the city of Hartford, I've always been, I wrote the recruitment plan in 2015. We were able to drastically increase minority recruitment after I put that plan together. And it also called for a full-time recruitment unit, which I was able to get started in the police department later on, or I believe it was early the following year. Also wrote the retention plan for the department. And again, both of these things were very, very important to increase the number of minority officers getting hired and staying in the department. I teach cultural diversity. I teach, for the last decade, I've taught cultural diversity. I've taught hate crimes, which is actually crimes motivated by bigotry and bias. I teach those not just to Hartford, but I've actually taught all around the state as being a state of Connecticut certified police officer, able to teach those again, I think since 2011 or 2012. So, I think it's very, very important. Thank you for putting together what you did over the weekend. It's very important. And I urge you to continue to stay involved. I was appointed last year to the Police Transparency and Accountability Task Force. I was one of, I think it was four, there's 3 chiefs and myself appointed to this task force. And actually we had a meeting today. We actually hadn't met for a couple weeks, a couple months actually, because of COVID. We had met before that. And that's all we talked about today. And we're putting together, it's the chief of Wallingford, the chief of Milford, the chief of Norwalk, myself, a couple state legislatures, Commissioner of Public Safety, James Ravella. And we're very fortunate to have the governor, Ned Lamont, and Attorney General, Mr. Tong, show up today or via Zoom and talk about, show up at our meeting. So it's been a great experience serving on that task force, and we're looking to put together a lot of great recommendations, to improve relations. But again, thank you for what you did. And, I'm very, supportive of, for me, it's been an important thing to diversify the police department, put a lot of time and effort into that over the past decade with my time in Hartford. So thank you.
So I'd like to say, I was going to mention this in my old and new business, but yes, congratulations, Thomas. The all accounts made me really proud of our community and how we came together. And I especially appreciate the way you were so organized and you went through all the proper channels so that we could put things in place for everybody to be safe. George, so the letter that Thomas has referenced, so for the past going on almost 3 years, Ed Bailey and I have been part of an equity and inclusion committee that was formed in RSD 13. Not only was it needed, but it was also partly in response to several incidences that happened within our school community. And so Ed Bailey and I wanted to make sure that we were part of that. We participated in several training opportunities, and we made the commitment that if there was any communication sent out on this subject matter, that we would stand together with the superintendent. So that's why that letter went out last week, and it was sent to all students and parents. All right, is there any other public comment? Okay, we'll go on to item number 4. Are there any nominations for the vacancies on Ag Commission or Inland Wetlands?
I do not have any.
John?
I do not.
Okay. All right, item number 5, COVID-19 response update. We're still hovering at 32 or 33 confirmed cases. which is good. We're pretty steady, which is following the state trends. Our focus since our last meeting has been to make sure that we are all ready to submit our reimbursements. There are several ways that our community can recover some of the excess costs related to this response effort. We'll be sending some material up to OPM, and we're also working with an active FEMA declaration as well. Most town hall employees are back in the building. We are letting the public in by appointment only, and that's also going very smoothly. The library has also started to do curbside pickup. The recreation department put out its summer programming I think today it went out, and people are starting to sign up for those programs. We are working on making our meeting rooms up on the 3rd floor what they call a Zoom room, so that when we resume our meetings up there, we'll be able to nicely integrate this technology so that we can continue to use this for members of the public who would rather participate like this, and maybe board members who might be out of town for any reason who might want to sign in on a meeting like this. So we're working on that. And long-term recovery still continues to be a focus, as well as making sure that our public safety departments have all the materials. We're still waiting on some orders for PPE, personal protection equipment. We've been participating with the state of Connecticut commodities distribution. So through the help of CBIA, our businesses have been requesting some of the state commodities, such as masks and thermometers and gloves and that type of thing. So I want to thank our emergency management department for organizing that and for staff to help distribute it. So the state's been going back and forth on the contact tracing, whether at first we were told that they were going to take that over, but our health department continues to do a lot of that effort, because I think the state realized that that's an onerous task for them to handle, even with the plan that they had in place. So our health department is still going to be involved with contact tracing, and that's going to become even more important when a vaccine becomes available and we start that distribution process. So as you know, the phase 2 of the Reopen Connecticut plan has been moved up by 3 days, which is encouraging. And I believe that come July, you will see a lot more open up. So you get those updates like I do. I think it's all sounding very encouraging. Anything else? Any questions, George or John, about COVID?
Yeah, I've got a couple. During this situation, I was curious, how are town checks being signed?
I believe that they've been put in either your box or John's box, and Jamie's been contacting either one of you.
I haven't been contacted.
You've not been contacted.
I've been doing it pretty much every week. Jamie's been contacting me probably more than, I know he kind of usually switches it back up and back and forth. It seems like in the last couple of weeks he's contacted me a little bit more, but I've been stopping and doing it.
Okay.
I just thought maybe there is a reason. I'll make sure that he calls you, George.
Please do, George. You're more than welcome to.
I was just curious. I know I haven't signed a check since March. So I was hoping we weren't stiffing everybody in the world.
No, I've been getting them done.
All right. The other question, during the COVID situation, who is prohibiting outdoor meetings at this point? The suggestion being made with outdoor meetings down at Allenbrook Park, is that within your purview, or who is saying that these? I thought the policy was that chairman had the right to declare where they'd wanted to meet during this.
So there's no technical prohibition. It's been my encouragement that we stay unified so that the public has an expectation of how public business was being conducted. So, and outdoor meetings, they have to be publicly noticed. So what happens if a publicly noticed meeting and it's raining, or it's too hot, or it's too windy? How does that happen? Do you cancel a meeting because of that? Who's going to set up the chairs? Who's going to make sure that people can hear? So for the sake of order and consistency throughout this very lack of order period of time, it was my recommendation that we all do the same thing. It is also my expectation that it's going to be all lifted probably in July. In almost every statewide call, some CEO has mentioned to the administration that it's time to start, meeting in public. I don't know of any other town who has sanctioned or endorsed or encouraged, although Middlefield's having their town meeting at the end of the month outside. I just thought for order and consistency that we should all do the same thing.
So, by the way, is that your kitchen timer going off?
Yes, it's my new refrigerator that talks.
All right.
Not literally, but it beeps.
It's telling you something.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's much better.
So there's no prohibition. It was just.
So I guess my question to you then,
encouragement.
Laura, is if the conservation were able to satisfy the public and the public needs, would you have a problem with them meeting at Allenbrook Park?
Yes, because, yes, it's my personal opinion that they're not going to be able to satisfy the public's with, but, there's bigger fish to fry right now. I'm not going to get into public arguments with chairmen. They're doing good, solid work for the town. I'm not going to do that, but I highly encourage that we stay with this until we all get these restrictions lifted and we go back to business as normal with this added benefit of technology. It's just my opinion.
Laura, are you saying that you believe by mid-July we'll be having regular meetings again in the upstairs third floor of Town Hall?
That's my good guess. Yes. That's the way I see it happening, because let's face it, so many other things are starting to get lifted. If you can go to a gym, in July, why couldn't we all be in a meeting with proper distances and proper precautions? If you can go indoor dining in July, why can't we have indoor meetings?
I agree. Couldn't come soon enough, I think.
So I think the administration is going to start to get a lot of pressure from town officials to do that.
Okay. So less than 30 days.
Here's hoping.
So,
And why I'm encouraged that the governor, I know it's only 3 days, but opening 3 days earlier than anticipated also gives me hope that that the administration is feeling comfortable with the numbers that they're seeing and the way people have been responsible in making choices. So I'm encouraged.
Okay.
Okay, item number 6. I'd like to make a motion to give approval of a resolution authorizing the submission of an application for an affordable housing planning grant with the State of Connecticut Department of Housing in conjunction with the town of Middlefield.
I'll second.
Okay, so if it was either last legislative session or the one before that, there was approved a requirement that each municipality in the state of Connecticut will have a affordable housing plan. It was intention at the time to get funding to help municipalities with the preparation of this plan, and $500,000 was allocated. And our new town planner, when she was hired, we told her that this is one of the things that we wanted her to start working on. Prior to the legislature being shut down this session, there was some discussion of a bill that was going to be introduced that would say that if a town failed to prepare and submit their affordable housing plan, that would make the town ineligible for discretionary funding. So it's something that we're required to do. I think a grant is up to $15,000. It is competitive. It's on a first come, first served basis. And with sharing a town planner with Middlefield, we're actually, if this resolution is approved, preparing to apply as a two-town application, hoping that with the legislature encouraging regionalism, that they would look favorably upon our application and award us the grant.
That link that she sent us to the Essex website was very helpful and very well done, by the way.
Yes.
It'd be nice if Durham and Middlefield could do something like that. And yes, I'm in favor of supporting this resolution.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 18.
Second.
Any additions, deletions, corrections?
I have a correction, I think.
On a mistake that I made on number 9, agenda item 9.
You found it. Very good.
Yeah, I wanted to see if you guys were.
I read it. I caught it.
That was Jacqueline's version of I Spy.
Yeah. Well, not only did you change case from capital to lower, but you also added a few extra words in there.
Yeah, so I will change that.
All right.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
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 I'd like to make a motion to approve the June 1st, 2020 special meeting.
Second.
Any additions, deletions, corrections?
I think there might want to be a correction. And
Okay.
I'm not sure if you said it exactly like this, but I think the way that I'm reading on page 2, the voting card that you were talking about, second to last sentence, you say alerting them to a new procedure and clear instructions on how to vote.
Oh, yes. No, we don't want to do that.
How to cast a ballot instead
How
of.
to cast a ballot. That's good.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, I'll change that.
See, Jacqueline, I did. I read them.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, old and new business. Don't have a lot. The survey results of the EDC survey, after 511 responses were received, were presented on a June 4th meeting. 29 people signed on to that meeting, And I sent the data to the two of you for your review. And I can get you a copy of their presentation as well. The bid has been sent out for the pickleball court base courses and paving bid. And the response time on that is June 23rd. Lynn Riet will be starting as assistant assessor on June 16th. Looking forward to having her on board. So I did attend some training webinars, returning to work phase 1, practical issues every employer needs to consider, essentials for the municipal employer, a webinar for RESF 14, long-term recovery leadership training, conference call with municipal officials regarding testing facilities and how our first responders and staff could get tested. Webinar scenarios for recovery and renewal in the tri-state region from outfit that's looking at, Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York. A webinar for COVID-19 mental wellness, an interactive webinar with Dr. Alicia Farrell. I want to thank the Durham Middlefield Local Wellness Coalition for putting that together for our parents and community members. And a webinar about Pura, where we met some of the new administration in that agency. I attended the RSD 13 teacher and staff parade on Friday, where we followed the bus routes to say goodbye to all the kids. It was kind of emotional, I got to tell you, seeing the kids out there, looking at how much they miss their teachers. And, it's been a tough year for them. I attended the COVID response meetings with RSD 13, Middlesex County Revitalization Commission, the DEMIS weekly meetings, the water main construction weekly meetings, RiverCog meetings, staff meetings, state regional long-term recovery steering committee conference call, sustainable CT board of directors meeting, the governor's weekly conference calls, hazardous mitigation plan public outreach meeting, chief's council meeting, and the health department update meetings. I especially want to say that I hope we do start our meetings in July, because we're very anxious to schedule a public outreach meeting to get the community engaged on the sidewalk project. So we're at the design phase of the project where we need some public input. So I'm especially excited to schedule that, hopefully sometime in July. Any other old or new business? Okay. Any other public comment or selectmen comments? Any selectmen comments?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Again, going back to the transition vote and what Phil had said about not happening in February, actually happening at the time of the election, you can actually go back further than that to 14 years ago during the charter revision. The problem that the Board of Selectmen faced when we decided to do the transition of terms the way we did through the ballot was we were falling back to a charter revision that said we might just have to transition terms if we ever pass the regional vote to put the Board of Ed members on the ballot. And by having a stated expiration term on ballots going back to 2 years, we're asking people to remember that there might have been a caveat going 14 years ago that they might not even have lived in town at the time to say, oh, gee, under this circumstance, we just might have to extend terms beyond the stated term of office that was approved 2 years ago. And as a Board of Selectmen, we felt that it was a little far-fetched to believe that people would go back to section 6.1 in the town charter under Regional Board of Ed and state that there was a transition period spelled out for 2007 and that it might be applicable to 2020. So again, we discussed it with council, we looked at our options, and we felt that the transition of terms to occur through an abbreviated term that people got to elect the way that we'd been doing it prior at annual town meeting was more representative of the way that we were doing the process up until the transition that will actually occur when we go to the municipal election in a year and a half. The other point that I would like to make to the board members, we've been, and I've been encouraging, pushing off the joint meeting with other town agencies to fulfill section number 4.3.3 of the town charter until we can meet in person. And hopefully that'll occur very, very soon. But as opposed to just having joint meetings with everybody and getting an update where they are, I thought it would be helpful to actually have meetings with the Board of Selectmen and specific groups, not necessarily meetings, but more of a workshop type setting where we discuss what our thoughts are, what their thoughts are. We try to figure out what direction we're heading. And the three agencies that came to my mind right away that I would love to get together with in no particular order, actually in a particular order. Economic development, I've listened to quite a few of their meetings and they would love to have further direction from the Board of Selectmen. And I would love to be able to give them that. And I know in this budget year, they really don't have a lot of money to work with. And we helped create that situation, but going forward, where do we take it from here? The other group I'd love to meet with that I sat in on their last meeting is the Compensation Review Committee. They are looking for greater direction from both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. And that brings me to the first group that I would love to sit down with and go over some issues with, and that's the Board of Finance. I would love to have a workshop with them first and just go over what everyone's role is in the process, including compensation, what their ideas are of what the Compensation Committee could be looking at, should be looking at, compare notes with them as a group. But also there's some items that I'm not sure that they're aware of. And again, this goes back to my time on the Board of Finance 20 years ago. As you know, and hopefully we're starting it back up again this year, but there was a town report that we put together for years. In fact, in my office in Wallingford, I have town reports from the town of Durham going back to the year I was born. And they stopped about 10 years ago in their entirety, not just online. But when I heard the finance chairman give his presentation for the annual budget, one of the definitions of what the Board of Finance does is do the annual town report. He has said it's on the town website, but under the town charter, there isn't a requirement for it, but there is, in fact, under state statute. Section 7.406 under town reports states specifically the Board of Finance or other corresponding boards in each town, or if there's no such board, the selectmen shall annually prepare and have published a town report. Such report shall be available for distribution and shall contain, in addition to the reports of town officers and boards required by law, to be included a statement of the amount received by such town under provisions of Part 2A of Chapter 240, together an itemized account of the disposition of such amounts. That section 2 lowercase a is about town aid roads and most town or state aid that comes into the towns. So it actually is a state statute that we do publish it annually. And I know that we stopped doing it years ago, supposedly because of cost. But I don't really know that we have the ability to do that. And I know that we're talking about putting it together again this year. We brought it up at the annual budget meeting. And I know that you've assigned Sherry Hill and Recreation to look into it. But it's important that the Board of Finance is involved in it every step of the way.
Yeah.
It is, in fact, their report. And I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And just issues like that, some things that are required, some things that we stopped doing out of habit, or some things that we picked up doing because of habits. And some of these habits are not necessarily correct. So what we're doing, how we're doing the budget going forward, I wrote you and John an email talking about the process being that the Board of Selectmen is supposed to put together a preliminary budget to pass on to the Board of Finance. But when you look at the Board of Finance's final budget, you're seeing original request amounts from the different agencies, and boards get put on the sheet. And I'm just wondering going forward if we should actually, just like the school system does, they have a superintendent's budget and then a Board of Ed budget and a final budget, and the cuts are made off of that. I really would be of the opinion that if we're doing our job properly, we're fine-tooth combing the budget, at which we did, and I added it up, and we put in 16 hours on the budget this year, and formally present that budget to the Board of Finance that they work from going forward. And again, all of that is mitigated on the idea that we hit our timelines and start the process earlier, and make sure all boards and commissions know that we're serious about these timelines, because the more eyes that look at this, the better for the public at large, and the better job we will do on a budget. And if we're rushed and something comes into the 11th hour, we're all not necessarily doing our job in the best possible way. So just ideas like that. There are others, but I just want to meet with them so that we all understand that we're all in this together. Obviously, we know we are, but that we're looking to do a better job, make any improvements where we can. And once you're finishing a process like the budget, which is an exhausting process, I think that's the best time to start thinking about next year, and not waiting to the fall to start the process. But basically, while it's fresh in everybody's mind, what can we do to make it better? So I would love to schedule a joint meeting, workshop, not meeting, but a workshop where we can openly discuss ideas back and forth with the Board of Finance first, and get on board with them, and potentially have a workshop then with the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and compensation to put that wheel in motion.
All right, so I'll work on scheduling those meetings. I don't know if, I will have to think on this. I don't know if I want that process, which I think could be very productive, to supplant the joint board and commission meeting, because I think there's some benefit for other boards to hear what some of us are doing.
Right.
And sometimes that allows people to see where things intersect.
Right, and the call for that is at least twice a year with one or more members of all boards, commissions, and agencies.
Right.
So, I mean, we can still do that as well, but I would love to have group workshops to start, and just make sure we're all in this thing together.
Okay, we'll start planning that. Put together, Jacqueline and Beth and I will put together a little plan for you to review.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other selectmen comments? Any other public comments?
Yes, Laura, Roger Passavant again.
Yes, Roger.
Warren Herzig and or Jesse Allen, we're going to reach out to you to throw Bob Miller's name in as a possible agricultural commission member.
Yes, he is a registered D. We need a registered R to fill that vacancy. Once that, if that vacancy continues to be left unfilled and the term expires, then, which is at the end of this year, then it doesn't matter. But at this point in time, our charter requires us to fill the vacancy with a member of the same party that was vacated.
Gotcha.
We did check on Bob's registration.
As a follow-up to my original comment, with no disrespect to you, George, or to John, I am the secretary of the Ag Commission, not the commissioner, but we would like to publicly notice that our next Agricultural Commission meeting will be next Tuesday, June 16th at 7 p.m. at Allenbrook Pavilion, under the pavilion. I will personally take responsibility for spacing chairs and making sure that we are appropriately socially distanced. And we would strongly recommend that people wear gloves and/or masks if they choose to.
I cannot give you permission to do that. Per our ordinance, you need to get permission to use Allenbrook Park from the rec department.
I will reach out to Sherry Hill tomorrow. I thank you.
Any other public comment?
Yeah, Roger Kleeman here again, Laura.
Hey, Raj, what's up?
I've heard complaints, and I'm totally in agreement that our approach into Durham on Route 17 has become deplorable. And they're not paving that for another year. And I know it's under the DOT and the Army engineer, but I know you have some choice meetings with them. So I think they need to correct it. It's getting worse every day. And we're trying to develop economic development. We're going to send people the opposite way with that condition that's going on down there. And the other,
I'll talk to them at our next weekly meeting and see if we can at least do some, good paving over there. I know the DOT doesn't want to, put us on the VIP program until it's completed. But I agree that I think we could skim coat some of those sections and make it less bumpy.
And just as a follow-up to that, Laura, some major truckers are starting to complain that it's hurting the undercarriage of their trucks. You put a weight on that, and it is really doing a number on theirs. And just as a follow-up to what Roger asked, Passovitz, does he go through Sherry for town meetings at Allenbrook Park too, or is that just other?
The ordinance says anybody who wants to reserve Allenbrook Park goes through the rec department.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to follow up on that with George and Sherry. I mean, Sherry's not the deciding factor, is she? She's just saying a scheduling person to say it's okay or not based on schedule.
It says the rec department. So,
But you're not asking permission is what I'm saying. You're asking for the spot.
that's
the
right.
timeline.
Yes, you have to get a permit from the rec department. And it's basically, I've rarely seen anybody deny it. And so, yes, it's a scheduling thing, but it gives the rec department the ability to discuss with whoever is having an event there, the proper, ways to take care of town property. So.
And a follow-up to mine was what George was saying with the Joint Commission. Since I sit on one of these commissions, I think it would be wonderful to have some workshops.
Very good. Are you going to bring the snacks?
Absolutely. What would you like, M&M's?
Ooh, but only the green and the red ones.
Sure.
All right. Rick, you have your hand up. Was that from before? You have to unmute if you're going to speak again. You're still muted.
Okay, I'm on live now.
Yes.
Okay, I apologize for interrupting George earlier. I can't get away hiding behind my lack of technology forever. Hopefully, we'll be able to get back to regular meetings again, face to face. But I would like to say that we wouldn't be holding these discussions today if we didn't have our military stepping forward over the years to protect our rights and so that we could vote. And they were voting at risk. The risks that we may encounter can be addressed. And it is very important to have a polling place open and to have absentee ballots also, but not to close it off. The other thing is regards to the water main, some of the hydrants on main streets that we have, I don't know if they're attached to a water system or not, but if they're not on a potable water system, it has to be a sign on the steamer nozzle on the front indicating that it's not potable water. And the other thing is if they're not fire rated and live, they should be bagged like the hydrants they're putting in now. And also, we need the town officials to monitor any testing that goes on, the fire marshal and the building inspector, because that water main, the feds may be paying for it, but once they're done, the ball's in our court and we'll have it for a long time. And so I think it would be in our best interest to make sure that we have our officials there for any tests that go on and they be monitored accordingly.
Yep. That'll be part of the plan. Phil, your hand is up. Is that from before?
Nope, I put it back up. Thank you. It's super quickly, Sherry was very helpful when we scheduled a caucus May 21st. Just a couple things though. I think the town website with regard to the hours of Allenbrook is a little bit confusing. And then for example, if Roger or the Ag Commission was going to be applying for a permit, there's some language in there about insurance needs as well as deposits. And I think you may want to clarify that language. Thank you.
That won't apply to town agencies. Great, thank you. Any other public comment? Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Everyone stay healthy.